Welcome to Inspiring Women in Audit, the only podcast celebrating the achievements and journeys of women in the internal audit industry. In each episode, we spotlight the extraordinary stories, insights, and expertise of these dynamic professionals. Our aim is to amplify their voices, inspiring a new generation of women auditors to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. Remember to check our show notes for links to our social media channels and to subscribe to the Inspiring Women in Audit newsletter. This podcast is brought to you by I4 Global Results Limited, the audit communication experts dedicated to transforming your audit reporting and your audit results through communication, optimization, and collaboration. Now, let's dive into this episode of Inspiring Women in Audit.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiring Women in Audit, the podcast that is dedicated to empowering and uplifting women in the internal audit industry. By amplifying their voices, we aim to encourage women in the audit profession to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. I'm your host, Tracy Marquardt, and I'm super excited today because I have Rania Bejjani with me. And Rania is the founder and CEO of an audit and consultancy firm based out of the UK. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience in audit, risk, and governance. She was a chief audit executive at 32, and I believe chief audit executive at 3 companies. So we'll learn more about that. She has a deep exposure running global teams and working with boards of directors. She also has a CIA and CGMA designations and has a master's degree in strategic management. She has a blog, is an international speaker at audit conferences, and is looking to start her own podcast soon. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about that. And Rania's superpowers, which of course we all have our own superpowers. So Rania's superpowers are transformation and change, influence and impact, and development of leaders. She's also a supporter of this mission of amplifying women's voices in the internal audit industry. So Rania, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Tracy. Thank you so much for hosting me, and it's a pleasure to be with you and with your audience.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. We have a lot in common, but I want to actually kind of take a step back. And when we had our first conversation, you told me you started off in finance, and I think it's maybe, I don't know if unusual is the right word, for someone to go from finance into audit. So can you tell us a little bit about how that journey, that leap went, and what was it about audit that pulled you in and has kept you engaged for all these years?
Sure. I think the word is curiosity. I started my career at Qantas Airways in Australia, in Sydney, Australia. And I was, lucky to be one of the 4 graduates they hire every year, from university. And as a graduate, you go through different departments, and so I did my time in corporate finance. I did my time in FP&A and reporting, and I had a rotation through audit. And when the time came to kind of choose, I felt that audit gave me a unique window to the whole organization, that I could, be one day in the jet base looking at airplanes and talking to engineer, the other be in the dingy room looking at, the uh, pink slips of tickets. This is when the, things were still on paper. Then another day I'm talking to a marketing team. So I felt that this was going to expedite my understanding. And then I had moments when I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be an auditor all my life. And I nipped out of audit and went back to finance, for a couple of years. But then I really enjoyed the diversity of the work that we did and the opportunity to make a difference and influence in the business. So I went back to audit very joyfully.
Isn't that it? It's like I left audit, and I'm back in audit. I'm not auditing with what I do with my business, but I think it gets in our DNA, this love and joy of auditing, and it never leaves. And so we take it with us wherever we go, and it very often pulls us back.
Yes, I love the fact that we get to get involved with very different things. So there is that as number one. I love the fact that we're actually dealing with people and interacting with people. And I love the fact that we're often faced with new challenges that we have to find solutions for. Now, let's
Mhm.
be honest, there is also downsides to being an audit, but for me, the benefits had outweighed, and yeah, it was appealing for me. And here we are, 20, what, 27, 28 years later. a career rich of work, the
Yeah.
vast majority of which is in audit, risk, and governance.
And I think it's amazing because I was in financial services department for 3 years. I had a team and they were doing the same thing day in, day out, month in, month out. In audit, it's totally different, right? And it's a really lovely thing, and you learn so much, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been in some amazing places that I would not have done without audit.
Well, I'm hoping we're going to hear some of those stories today.
Sure. Sure.
And I want to come back to that point. You became a chief audit executive at 32. I mean, I think this is quite impressive, and it's a lot of pressure potentially. So can you tell us about that experience, what it was like?
Sure. I think, Tracy, it's important to take a little step back. And I don't know if it's okay to share some personal details here, but I think there is a context to how and why I was comfortable doing that. um in my we always talk about our professional careers, and perhaps this is the first time I ever mentioned this, by the way, on any place, so you're getting a very special insight into my life, Tracy, you and your audience. But I was born and grew up in a country that was torn by war, a very brutal war. I lost my father when I was quite young. I was 16. My mom made a decision that we were going to leave and immigrate to Australia. So we had to uproot and start again. And from Australia, a few years down the line, I made a decision again out of adventure and curiosity to move to the UK. And I came without a job, without knowing any soul here. It was just what you do when you're young. You make some decisions, right? So by that stage at 32, I had built quite a lot of resilience and grit and life experience. And I had worked in a number of, industries. I started with airlines, went to media, went to consumer finance, was in oil and gas, was with Deloitte, looking at very, very many different industries. And, by that, I took my first managerial role. How old was I? I was 26. So I had already some experience, and working with Deloitte, I was working with very many big clients, engage in a senior capacity at the top. So it felt absolutely normal. I did not even flinch or think and did not consider what that meant. And I believe that when you are young, you take a lot more risks.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's only as I, got into my 40s and I looked back and I thought, Jesus, how did I do that? How? Where did I get the whatever?
Fearlessness, maybe. Fearlessness.
It was. There's a dig. As you grow older, you build the wisdom, but when you're younger, you take more risks. So, of course, it was a massive job, and I had a team of 25, 26 people globally. I had to set up a team in India. I had to restructure. I was working with an incredibly experienced board. Probably that what helped me, although at the beginning, when I started in that job, audit and risk didn't really exist in the form that ended up at the end, and audit was not particularly loved or liked. It gave me, I was able to prove myself and change things and build the trust and the credibility with the CEO and the CFO and the C-suite. But I had a fabulous board. I feel I'm lucky that I had a fabulous board who nurtured me, if that makes sense.
That must have been invaluable, to be honest, because when you walk into that role in a new company, or had you known them before? Like, because you were at
Oh,
Deloitte, so it's
no,
completely new.
no, I hadn't. I had uh no, I had worked at Colt was a client about a year and a half before I joined them. I did a small piece of work for them, but it was a new CEO, a new CFO, a new board by the time I joined, and I didn't know any of them. And um, I do believe in life. Sometimes life presents you opportunities and you gotta have the confidence to seize them. And I did seize the opportunity, and it was incredibly rewarding and enriching Did it come with its highs and lows? Certainly. It had.
Mhm.
Did it come with obstacles or challenges? Of course. You worked through it with the right attitude, and it was a fantastic chapter in my career.
I love it. The thoughts that come into my mind are you must have had, even at that age, excellent communication skills and the ability to build relationships, because when you walk in, new chief audit executive at a new company, there is a perception of audit already in the business. And did you have to overcome or just supplement or
Indeed, I did. I mean, I remember vividly when I first started, and just again to kind of manage everyone's expectations. Since I'm an auditor, I need to be factually correct. I signed my contract at 32, but I had just turned 33 when I started on, when just for factual
roll
accuracy.
that again?
Once an auditor, always an auditor, right?
Right.
Indeed, when I first started, and as you would in any job, you would be spending time with the board, with the C-suite, with the middle management, getting, with the other parts of the organization, getting to know them. And the common phrase that I was hit with over the first 3, 4 weeks is like, audit is a waste of time. They borrow our watch, tell us the time, they borrow our watch, tell us the time. Do we really need auditors? Your team are useless. Why are you here? I mean, I had a lot of that. And you just gotta listen, because this is valuable feedback. You gotta listen and understand. This isn't about taking it personal or getting defensive in any way. I was inheriting this. So it was important for me to understand how big the task was, and hear, what does the business need? The way I
Mhm.
operated always, and I frankly still do, is I always thought of my internal audit function and risk function, etc., like we're rendering a service to the business. And maybe this came from my background in a big four. So I'm rendering a service, and I want to make sure that my service to you, as marketing or operations or engineering or IT or HR or whatever it is, that is a valuable service. So I want to hear, what is your problem? What is it you need? And how can we service your needs in a way that adds value?
I love that. I absolutely love that because it's a different perspective, right?
Yes.
And and I love that you said the board nurtured you in a way. Can you expand on that at all?
Sure, sure. First of all, I had a great we had a great quality in the board. Colt was at the it is now 100% owned by Fidelity International. At the time, it was listed on the London Stock Exchange, but we had a very strong board representative of the caliber of Fidelity. So the audit co-chair, for example, was the former global group CFO of Unilever, and he was my boss. We had great executives from the world of IBM, from Fidelity, from Oracle. We had very seasoned C-suite and very, very seasoned board. And what I meant by nurtured is that uh, when I came in, and because knowing then, and, I very much knew, that was my first role. So I went with an openness, and I saying, look, if you don't like what I'm telling you or it doesn't work, please tell me. I want to improve. So I went with this open attitude, which encouraged them to give me the feedback. And yes, I made mistakes sometimes. Of course I did. But I took on board what they told me, and I fine-tuned my approach. So I treated everything as a feedback loop, not as a failure.
I love that. So as we've been talking, I've been writing things down. I've got curiosity and courage and fearlessness, and I've just also written down like mindset. It's the attitude that you bring to it, right? That can
Mindset is first and foremost the most important thing.
and it can really affect how people perceive you and your department, and then how they interact with you. So the relationship building, and then the results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, um, what you think about, you bring about. And
Exactly.
I've worked as a chief audit executive, and I had led my teams. The first thing I always worked on was mindset, and when I work now with my clients, as I coach them, the first thing I work on is mindset.
All right. Well, we're going to come back to mindset, I think. So let me turn to your track record. You transform internal audit into a respected strategic partner. Do you have maybe an example you can share with us of that kind of transformation and what made it truly successful?
Sure. Uh, it's important to understand that transformation does not happen overnight. Transformation is a journey.
Hmm.
And it very much starts with, as I said, the will and the desire and the vision to build something better. So, you've got to have the right intent, and then you got to go and ask the questions and do your assessments and get an honest awareness of where do you stand, out of 10. Am I a zero? Am I -5? Am I a 5? Am I a 6? Where do we stand? And where are the things that we need to improve on? And then really going on with that and getting the results. And so this kind of transformation journey would apply to any function in the world, not just audit. Whether we're talking about engineering or audit or sales or whatever, like, and building a highly effective function and making that shift is something I'm particularly passionate about. And we need to understand what are the different levers, what makes an internal audit functions, and where can we have the most leverage and most change, by changing what we do. And so in when I was at Colt, we were in a phase where I needed to transform it from being seen as a legacy department, old fashioned,
Mm.
not loved by the business. And by working on the different levers that were needed, from in this case, I restructured the team. And by the way, this is not a cookie cutter approach. Every situation would require a different set of parameters. But having done it 3 times in my career, and then having helped multiple chief audit executives, obviously I've built like a blueprint, like a
Yeah.
compass, and a system to how to do it. And this is what you know I leverage today in my work. And basically it's about understanding what is your situation, what are these levers, and targeting them. And there are commonalities, even though the circumstances would be different, and it has to be tailored to everyone's situation. So in the case of Colt, I restructured the team. I built risk management from scratch. There was a lot of time spent in building, healing relationships with the business, and but also, other aspects that are essential to driving the team. When I went to first group, it was about leveraging all that experience from Colt, because we wanted to accelerate and do a fast modernization. So
Mhm.
again, it was about understanding where are the pain points. So for example, in the case of first group, some pain points were about the types of audits that we were conducting, so and also the relationships and few other matters. So we worked on those. When I was at Vion was under DPA, under Deferred Prosecution Agreement, having had a unfortunate situation in one of its countries that led to fines, and a significant 1 billion worth of fines, and a DPA. So here the situation was different, and it was about building completely rebuilding internal audit, building the foundations grounds up, and focusing a lot on is strengthening the independence and the quality, and elevating it to sustain the intense scrutiny of the SEC and the DOJ, etc. Some of the clients I work with, they are vary, they vary. They come from 0 over 10 to 7 out of 10, and so my mission is to help them edge closer and closer, and hit the 10, where they are delivering meaningful work that is aligned to what is needed in their organization, that the team, the skills, the relationships, etc., that the various levers needed in an internal audit function are there. And I do the same as well with GRC and risk and compliance, etc. Have I answered your question?
So
Can I go on
yeah,
to
yeah, but I
Sorry,
think I
if
mean, it
not.
sounds very exciting. So I work with audit teams to optimize and to make communication better, to get a better audit result, audit reporting, all of that
That's a
stuff.
huge important piece, by the way. That's one of the important levers.
Right. And so what you're touching on is much broader in scope. And I'm wondering, is there like one tip that you can give our audience now if they're like thinking we need massive change?
Yes. The first tip is understand where you are now, do an assessment, be very honest. Don't do like the ostrich burying your head in the sand. You
Right.
are auditors, audit yourself first.
I love it.
That would be my tip. And then understand what's your organization. And from there, you can. Another tip is, people such as yourself, such as me, and there are a lot of others, we've gone through that process. So do talk to the experts, do talk to people
Yeah,
who've walked that path before you because you accelerate that transformation you know, and it's still
absolutely.
your success.
Absolutely. And I always start with a gap analysis. Like where are you today? Where do you want to be? And then let's look at the difference and figure out how we get you there. Where's the low-hanging fruit? Where things are going to take longer, that take more resources, where it's more of a who, not the how, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good fun though, isn't it?
My first step is a gap analysis as well. But
Yeah.
frankly, it's also first is like a screening. Do they really want you to change? Because this
Mindset again.
journey this journey takes time and effort and has ups and downs. Are they really understanding what they want to do and do they really want to do it? So I screen clients to make sure they really committed to making the change.
It does take courage. So that C word comes up again. I think it does take courage for a chief audit executive to say, okay, we're ready and we need the change. And
Cor-
and we're ready to commit, the resources, human and otherwise, to make sure that we get this and achieve
Correct.
the end result that we're looking for and that the business needs from us so that we can add more value.
And having been in a chief audit and risk executive shoes myself, as I said, in three different organizations, in very complex regulated environments, in very large, complex businesses. At Vion, I had a team of 80 across 9, 10 countries. In the first group, I had teams in Canada and the US, UK, and when I was at Colt, we had pan-European. Then I centered, which I restructured, and I created a center of excellence in the UK and started one in India. So I've worked in very different industries. I've worked in large scale, so I get what they do. There are certain things that a chief audit and risk and compliance would face. The budget they have, and but how can you overcome that by demonstrating the value you're going to deliver and the benefits? How can you articulate the benefits to your board so that you can get the budget? There is the time, and it's about managing expectations that, hey, board, hey, business, as I am, you want me to improve and I want to improve. But as I go through that journey, you got to understand, I'm running dual track, I'm changing a business, changing my team and the way we work, etc., and delivering an audit plan. So, hey, you got to understand that there is some leeway that needs to happen. And very important is a conversation. Look, board, I can be the hero or the heroine, depending if it's a gentleman or lady here listening here, but you gotta give me some help here, because it takes two to tango. It's not just me as chief audit and risk. Now, as a chief audit and risk, it's down to us to make that decision, to take the first step, to go to make it compelling, convincing, to engage, to get the buy-in. We own that responsibility 100%, but we gotta make sure we secure the buy-in from the board. And they may not always be willing, so we have to find ways of how we're gonna get it.
I love that because getting board buy-in is super important. And I think also managing those expectations is key to being successful.
Yes. And an open conversation, an open, honest dialogue about what's possible, what is not, and the wonderful benefits we can get if we do it differently is a great way to start.
I love that too. Think of what is the transformed world going to look like when we're done this, right? That's if you can share that vision and they buy into that vision, then the path is much smoother. May not
Yes.
be always smooth, but it's smoother.
It's never always smooth. We all know that. But the thing is, um, in my blogs or whatever, I always place the responsibility squarely in the lap of the chief audit and risk officers because they have to drive that.
Yeah.
I've said that before and I'll say it, if you're waiting for the board to empower you, you're going to wait a century. So you gotta you've got to
Own it.
own it, drive it, give it your best shot. And then, if the organization doesn't do it, that's a separate conversation. But you gotta
Absolutely.
be in the driving seat, not in the passenger seat.
I love that. It's so true. You've got to own the result that you want so that you can get there and have other people join you on that journey. All right. Well, listen, I wanted to talk about some of the work that you do. You've told me that you have mentored and developed, I think it's about 18 chief audit executives. And I know in our audience there are a lot of new chief audit executives, or there are those who would like to achieve that role. So do you have, one person stands out where you could kind of share her journey of how where she was before you worked with her and where she was after you worked with her?
I'll give you two examples actually. Someone who was in my team and someone who is like a client. So I had an opportunity in one of the countries when I was in my last CAE role, and we um, it is a country perhaps where internal audit talent is not the most widely available. And so I went to that country a number of times and interviewed different people, and I really didn't feel that anyone was gonna cut the mustard in terms of the standards I had, the
Mhm.
quality I demanded, etc. And but throughout this, every time I visited, I spent time getting to know the local team more because I believe that what you call it? It's not like a little story about digging for diamonds, instead of selling your
Yeah.
farm, go dig for diamonds somewhere else, dig in your own backyard first. And so I identified two particular people that potentially they were nowhere near ready to be chief audit executive, right? Nowhere near ready to lead for that country. But I identified that they have a little spark that I could try to work on and see where there's gonna give me. So I've put her through different cross region, cross country programs, cross-border or things. I got her to come to head office and help me with a couple of things. I wanted to kind of see how she's taking on responsibilities and initiative and drive, and how does she respond, and without unknown to her, obviously, completely unknown to her. And I saw that actually she had the right the right ingredients. And so I had an honest conversation with her, and I think, I could pause that recruitment and give you that role if you want to step into it. And so I developed her and I nurtured her. And we're talking about this about 8 years ago, and she is still absolutely successful in what she's done, and she's had fantastic impact and influence. And it was through teaching her, through experience, through immersive experience, through direct coaching from me, guiding her, pinpointing her. So I was like the mentor guiding her. I was her boss, obviously, but I was also the mentor. I was her boss's boss, technically, but I guided her into that, and she stepped into it, and she was fantastic. I could talk about another example amongst, my client base, someone who had an aspiration and I was overlooked for a promotion few times, partially because she was also young, by the way. And so I've worked with her to fine tune her skills, fine tune how she's presenting herself, how she's communicating, what she's finding, to elevate her demeanor and her uh, presentational skills, not just as in presentational skills, but the content and the way she thought about things, to demonstrate more strategic thinking. And, to be able to speak the language of the business and the language of the board. So, and she got the role. And so here we are.
I think those are great tips because, as I said, we've got a lot of, I think, young uh, chief audit executives in our LinkedIn group for inspiring women in audit. And I always want to help, help anyone who's listening really just kind of raise to see the possibilities for themselves or for others. And then, what can they do or what can we do to help raise them and inspire them and mentor them and whatever, words we
Yes.
want to use
Yeah.
to get to the next level, because
Yeah.
most people want more. It just depends on what that more is for them. It's all different for everybody. But for those who want to be in that chief audit executive role or who are new in it, I think having a mentor is a great idea.
I think it is. Besides the work I professionally do as a living, I also have as a project, a personal initiative that I do completely, out of love for service. I have a group of Gen Z, a girl. I mean, there's three guys in the group, but mostly young ladies in their early 20s, and they are auditors and non-auditors. Some are engineers, some are sales. That one is a doctor, one is a lawyer, one is in fashion. Some in finance, one is an auditor. So, and I share those experiences with them because when we were growing up, and you would know
Yeah.
that our generation, I'm a Generation X, we had none of that, none, and we didn't even have a role model as women, but I share with them because I want to help them navigate that. And my tip for all your lady listeners here, I guess it doesn't only go to men, so this applies to both men and women. But if we're specifically targeting women, I would like to say, don't believe in statistics. If I would to look at my statistics, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here today. I'm from a non-English speaking background. I came all alone to this city. I came and started by myself, and I made it. And I made it because of a number of things, and it's not only luck. Luck is opportunity meeting preparedness. I
Yes.
was prepared through my life experiences. I had built the courage, the fearlessness, the confidence, and my mind was set on how am I going to make my life better? What is it that is going to be the best version of me? And I was never, what's the word? I didn't pursue a specific opportunity because this was gonna get me better. I just pursued being really good at what I do. And not just technically, but technically, a personal presentation, a mindset, confidence, and all that comes with it. In 9.9% of any meeting I had in my life, I was always the only woman around the table. So ever since I started, I had a lot more male colleagues and male bosses and male environments. Okay, if it's 9.9, it's 9.5, go for it. But, you know, uh, and we have to navigate that. It isn't about entitlement. It isn't about, it's all about the who you are, the quality of your work, meritocracy, believing in yourself, and staying positive.
Absolutely. Like 100% preaching to the choir. I love everything you've just said. And it really resonates because as you're telling your story, I was smiling, maybe even chuckling because I just feel that connection because, I moved to Germany. I worked for someone else. Relationship was no longer serving me for various reasons. And I just thought I have more to give, more to offer, more to share. And, and if I release myself from all of these bindings of being in a normal employment, I can soar. I can fly like an eagle and I can be my best self. And
It's
I built a business in a foreign country where I wasn't bilingual, where I was on my own. There was nobody else to pay the bills and and we just do it. So I think there's something inside that brings that out. So whether or not you're listening and you want to start your own business, maybe you're an internal auditor, maybe not, or maybe you want to just do more inside the audit profession. All of that comes from within. It's not about entitlement. It's not about how long you've been an auditor. It's about mindset and it's about courage and it's about leading change, I think,
oh,
because as
maybe.
in the audit industry, we are changing and the pace is, I think, quicker than it's ever been before, but it's still not that quick in all cases, in all aspects. And
Yes.
so and this is what I do in all the webinars that I do. I'm like, I don't want to see you back on the next webinar because I want them to take what I tell them now and go and implement so they don't need to come back to the next webinar to find out what else I have to say.
There's so many beautiful insights. I'm sure they'll be back to learn more. It's all right. that, that they
They
come
do
back.
come back. Some of them just come back just because as long even if you only learn one thing, right? And you're like and everything, and I'm sure you do it too, it's like everything I talk about when I'm on stage, when I'm giving a webinar, or when I'm teaching, I want them to be able to implement tomorrow. I want them to go, "That idea I can take and I can put that in tomorrow."
And
Because
I love
I
that.
wanna I wanna inspire, I wanna be the drop in the water so that they turn around and then they take an action and they inspire their team and others around them and are on LinkedIn, inspire whatever it is, you know?
Correct. And I share that and I applaud you for that. Um, we have gone through an experience. I'd like to think of it as a very rich experience with its highs and with its lows. And with that comes insight and wisdom and a lot of lessons learned. And for me, sharing those, whether it be on stage, like speaking at a conference, which I do, whether it be on a webinar, webcast, or actually in a one-to-one or on a group situation, one with the team, this is about being of service and really helping others navigate those waters that we had to sail through, and we learned the way, and so it's accelerating someone's experience, and it's such a joy. It's such a joy to be able to give something to someone, and then suddenly, let me share a story with you. Like, I think it was about a couple of years ago, or a bit more, maybe 3 years ago. I was in a meeting and I was having a bad day. I was genuinely having a bad day because, like, I was exhausted. It was so many things was going on and I was tired and having a bad day. And then out of the blue, I get a ping on my phone and I open it, and it's a message from someone who used to be in my team, uh like 8 years prior or something. And I probably hear from him once every blue moon. And in that moment when I was thinking, why on earth did I do all this, right? I get this message from him saying, Rania, I was on the stage. He's now he's also a chief audit executive, and in doing absolutely great in Asia at the moment, and love his work. And he said, Rania, I was on stage and I was asked who was the most influential and inspirational person in your career, who shaped your career. And without hesitation, I said, it's you. In that moment, I had like a tear down my face, like, wow, that is so rewarding. It makes a difference. And, it is that's all we keep at the end of the day. None of us is getting younger, and all we're going to keep is a legacy. And if the legacy is to be remembered, whether it be yourself or I, that we've helped, inspired, empowered, educated, uh, then mission accomplished.
Wow, I feel like we could end there, but we're not going to. That was amazing, and it really changes your whole perspective. So that day, it was such a bad day, and then it turned
Transformed,
into
and it flipped in a second. Then I forgot the tiredness and I forgot those petty little things they were annoying me. And I thought, it's worth it.
I wanna say, I mean, you're incredibly accomplished. When we have these conversations, I can the experience that you have just kind of resonates off the screen. Um, what's something that people might not see that's been part of your leadership experience behind the scenes?
Thank you very much, first of all, Tracy, for your kind words and for your appreciation. I take it to heart and I receive it joyfully. Um, and a word to all your audience, there is nothing one-sided in life. There is no pain, there is no gain without a pain, right? So we've got to be realistic, and it's not like things just happen overnight. Everything is a journey. I am very humbled and grateful and appreciative of the path my career has taken, and it's important to you know be realistic with your audience, because people, like, they look at something and say, oh wow, I wish I can be that. I'm very flattered by that, but I want to give value and not get like ego massaging for myself, if that makes sense. And
Yep.
so if you will look at anything that is that you admire, a tall building, let's say, right? A tall, nice building. For that building to be tall and beautiful and shining and a high rise and iconic, someone had a vision and someone dug very, very deep underground and, build very, very strong foundations for that to bring it to stand tall. A tree that you see full of fruits has, those fruits come from those roots underground that are going and fetching for nutrients in the ground and for water and welcoming the sunshine. What I'm trying to say is that it takes work and effort and intention and commitment and consistency to get results. They don't just land in your lap. So of course, there's always a little element of luck, and there's depends on timing. Sometimes you might meet the right person. Sometime you might be in the right organization. There are all these elements of luck, but also it's about how do you invest in yourself as a person and as a team. How consistent are you? How committed are you? How well do you work on it? Are you being courageous, taking the risks, taking the action? Are you seeking help and support? Are you asking for help when you need it? Are you receiving it, applying it? I mean, some people read 1,000 books and nothing changes. Some
Right.
people read one book and then they change their life, or they talk to one person and they change their life.
You
So
have to take action. If
you gotta take action. So you can't have a glamorous or an accomplished career without in the background, uh, clarity of what is it that you want. Or if you don't have that clarity, I'm not gonna say I always had that clarity. Sometimes I don't have that clarity, but you have the consistency, the commitment to yourself, you work at it, you're determined, you're positive, you don't take no for an answer easily.
yeah.
And but also you got to understand that things come at a price. So, if you're traveling a lot and spending a lot of time, you may be spending less time with your loved ones. And maybe
Yeah.
you don't have as much time to do certain things. So we've got to be realistic about what it is. And so answering your question is that there are certain ingredients that have to pour into that tree for it to stand tall. But
I know you've done a lot of, personal development work, and I have done some as well. We are both firewalkers, which was a truly amazing experience. I don't talk about it that often in public, but I will say that it changed my life. And so when you don't have to be a firewalker, you can do something else, whatever is in alignment with you. But um, it truly taught me that I could achieve anything.
yes, yes,
What did firewalking mean for you?
done a lot of things other than just fire walking to kind of do it. But um, by
Tell
the way,
us.
does anyone, if in case someone does not know what fire walker is, it's a process where you actually walk over red hot coal that is on fire, and you walk for about, I don't know, 2 3 minutes or 2 minutes or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. Mine wasn't 2 minutes, but it was maybe 15 feet or 12 feet
Something
long.
I can't remember,
Yeah.
but it feels like an eternity
It,
while you're doing it. And and it is a way of opening the mind and transcending limitations.
yeah.
And I believe that every single one of us, what is that song? There's a hero inside of us. Everyone, there's a hero inside of us, right? And a hero and a heroine inside of every single one of us. But oftentimes that voice is, toned down by all the beliefs about what we cannot be and what society taught us, parents, schooling, economy, whatever, whatever, whatever. And this limits us. And as a seeker, and I believe you're a seeker too, Tracy, and I'm sure there's a lot of in your audience who are seekers. As a seeker, I'm a seeker of truth. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to know why things are the way they are, and why do they turn out like this. And as a seeker for truth, sometimes you gotta push yourself to get it. And certainly when you get involved in that out of the ordinary experiences, your mind perspective, your point of view changes, because a mind once stretched never goes back to its original dimension. And I
Yeah.
certainly stretched my mind a lot. For a good 16 years I've been involved. Actually, I've never talked about that in a public domain either, Tracy. So you go, you're getting a lot of inside Rania's head things today. I've been involved in a lot of personal development. I've trained as a coach. I've studied NLP. I've studied with Tony Robbins, with Dr. John Demartini, with Dr. Robert Holden, with Dr. Joe Dispenza, with Eckhart Tolle, and many, 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 many others. And for me, it was a thirst for knowledge, a thirst for knowledge, seeking truth. And I wanted to see uh, what is beyond the obvious, what is beyond our day-to-day reality, and what else is there to life. And certainly this has helped me greatly in my success, because I was able to face limitations I looked at with a different perspective, and dig deeper in myself to be able to face challenges and overcome them.
Yeah, and for me, it's also to create more. I always say, be more, do more, have more, create more. So whether it's creating for me, whether it's creating for my community, creating for my family, um, it can be even, vendors and suppliers. Like there's no limit, but it's if I can, I hate to use this phrase because it's quite common, but be better. If I can do better, if I can learn more so that I can create more, I can show others more, that leads to success for me. Now, how do you define success? Everybody defines success differently. For some, it's monetary, for some, it's family, for some, it's health, for some, it's just a general quality of life. I mean, success doesn't, I think, have to be just one thing. It's individual. Um, so I have my own definition of success, and I feel like I'm always moving the bar a little bit higher. I don't know if you feel the same way in what you do.
No
It's like I
wonder why
never get there because I'm always wanting to do more.
no wonder why we connected so well, Tracy. Absolutely. For me, it is, what started me, as I said, is that thirst for knowing, I was interested in the universal laws in the universe, in metaphysics, in why people do what they do, why some good people do bad things, why bad people do bad things, why sometimes we sabotage something, why some people do it better than others, why, so there was this curiosity and about the why, and who am I, and what is the best version of me, and why am I here? These sort of questions is what propelled me on that journey, looking for a lot of answers. And those answers bring a lot of depth and width to my view of the world. It helps me see a bigger picture and join the dots, and also certainly influenced massively my career. The way I handle challenges, the way I engage and communicate, the way I build relationships, the way I lead from my heart. This is a point I'd like to come back to. Actually, it's really important because I think there's a missing piece. A lot of people lead from a notebook, the rules. I lead from my heart, and I'm proud to say that, because I've got a very people-centric approach to how I do business. And leading from the heart does not mean you're not strategic. It is about how do you stay anchored in your authenticity, in your integrity, in your heart, in those important values. That means when you are delivering, whether you are training your own team, or talking to a board, or mentoring or training a client, or putting a piece of advisory for the C-suite, to look at and assess that there is intrinsic value that you can't quantify, and that makes you stand out. And what also it does is that we become like this drop that creates ripple effects around us.
Me. That was one of my backgrounds actually a couple years ago. It was actually the image of my background that I was using because that's what I wanna be when I stand in front of an audience at a conference or when I'm standing in front of a room of people to teach them how to get better results from their audit reports or whatever it is. I wanna be that drop that is the inspiration, but the gentle, sometimes not so gentle, I have to say, nudge into becoming them taking the action to then create their own ripples. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's
I hear. I like gentle.
sometimes I have to say, sometimes I do give a little bit of tough love, and I tell them, I'm like, "With all the love of my heart, you need to be doing this, and you need to start doing it, like, now."
I do that sometimes too, of course. But, my conclusion, out of I've had my moment of giving tough love slightly in a bigger dose than I intended, and so
Yeah,
of course, we all learn around the journey, and
we do.
I
We do, we do, we
emphasize
do.
tough love is
But
important.
but I
Uh,
I don't see fluff, I see the heart, and I also see the gratitude, um, from you, so
thank you. Thank you. Life, um is a series of ebbs and flows, and
it's
my motto has always been that on the high, it's very important to stay humble and grounded and kind. And on the low, it's important to remain faithful and grateful and positive. So
yes,
that's how you navigate life, and that's how you
absolutely.
shine. And let's keep shining.
So listen, along these lines, I know you have some things you do outside of work to like keep you centered and to have a little bit of enjoyment out of life. And one of them is yoga. And so I feel like this is a good flow from the conversation that we just had. You've told me you've had years of experience with yoga. So what does yoga do for you that translates into your professional life?
Sure. Um, as you might have gathered from previous times we've spoken and today, uh, I'm a high energy person, naturally high energy, right? Okay, so this is the universe gift to me. And but if you're always in a rush, not that in a rush. Sorry, let me take that back. I'm not always in a rush. I am sometimes, but not
Yeah,
always.
I was gonna say I kind of get that, but go on.
But if you're always like uh thinking and doing and thinking and doing, it can you can get caught into the thinking and the doing. And so yoga, um, for me, similarly a little bit with Pilates because I love both. But I guess yoga has more a bigger dimension to it. But doing yoga is a valuable opportunity for me to pause. So this is my way of saying pause. Pause, reflect, breathe, get out of my head into my heart, into my body, uh connect with the greater force of the world, hear my own heartbeat and connect to why I'm doing this. So it is on a scientific basis, it kind of heals your body, calms down your nervous system, and gives me that clarity, mental clarity and reconnection to my purpose. So whether I'm doing a meditation, because I do meditate, or whether I am doing yoga, whether I'm walking in nature, whether I'm doing a Pilates class, it's an opportunity, an intentional opportunity to say, pause, reconnect. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And do I need to continue this way or change direction? And now the added bonus is you get physical tonality and fitness and flexibility and all that. But yoga is wonderful. I love it.
So I I think for the audiences listening, this is gonna go one of two ways, that last question. They're gonna be like, wow, I need that space and time for reflection and connecting with my heart and my body, and I'm gonna try it. Or they're gonna be, well, I guess it go three ways. Or they're gonna be I do it too, and it gives me the same. And so they're like totally resonating with what you've said. And then there's going to be the small group that's like yoga, whatever. So that was me. I always had in mind to do it. So I'm gonna take what you just told me into my yoga session tomorrow, and I'm going to be more open and more patient with myself.
And I would say it doesn't happen. Everything is a journey, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It's like when you started learning how to drive, right? It's not, at the beginning, you don't know that you don't know how to drive. You're consciously incompetent. Then you become conscious that you don't know how to drive. You're consciously incompetent. Then something happens. You take lessons, you seek an expert, you get a breakthrough, and then suddenly you learn how to do it, but you're very conscious of it. And then you do it so much that becomes ingrained in you and becomes an unconscious competence, right? It's the adult learning ladder. And we do that in the way we learn how to audit, how to swim, how to drive a car, how to cook, how to dance, how to debate, how to present in front of a board, how to lead people, how.
For me, it was learning German.
There
I
you
spent
go.
8 years in the country without any lessons.
Oh, wow.
Finally got a teacher, and I said I remember I said and we had a few lessons, and I'm like, "Stefan, you don't correct me." And he's like, "Tracy, that's because you make so many mistakes, and you wouldn't understand what I'm telling you in terms of why we need what the correction is." So I'm like, "Fair enough." So I did do about a year and a half of lessons with poor Stefan, and, before he ran off to Asia to teach there.
You
I think
speak
I scared him
now?
off.
Speak
But
fluent.
I have enough to get by, so there you go. Alright, so I wanna, jump to a question. I like you're passionate about elevating the profession and empowering audit professionals, very clear to me. In your view, what are the biggest needs in the audit profession today that aren't being adequately addressed?
I'm gonna talk about three different things. Two are within the reach of the CAEs. One is probably to the wider audience, may it land on the right ears. First of all, we do need to elevate the profession from a regulatory standpoint, from uh, uh, an awareness standpoint. I still think, and it's a shame that my career is this is my 28th year of working, but there have been auditors for 40 and 50 and plus years, and some of the things out there have not changed. I was having a conversation with a fellow thought leader a couple of days ago, and she was running some awareness things for a big group of audit co-chairs. Believe it or not, she said that 70% of them have never even heard that there is an institute for internal auditors, or don't really understand the profession, etc. So I do believe there is an action on the part of, like, the regulatory bodies, the institute, people like you and I, to continuously make awareness. So I do speak to board of directors regularly, and I've presented recently to a number of forums of board of directors. We need to build that awareness. So this is a collective effort with the regulators. It is time that we give this profession its due credit. We are not like some sort of compliance obligation that they have to do, or some little group of people. You've got talented people who want to serve, and we need to give them the due uh, exposure and sponsorship and acknowledgement, and that seal of validity, if that speaks.
Absolutely.
The second point I want to address is to the chief audit and executives, to say that you have, as chief audit and risk leaders, you have a responsibility. I'm not preaching to the converted, I know that, but what I would like to say is that with that responsibility, it falls upon you to take the lead. As I said earlier, no one's going to empower you, no one's going to save you, no one's going to say, hey, let me elevate you. The decision to elevate, to transform, to grow must start with you. Yes, it can be challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding if you can do it. And there's a lot of support out there. to help you. Lots of mentors and coaches and consultants who've done that before you, such as yourself, Tracy, such as myself and others that can help you. A message to the auditors and to the whole audit community. And you would hear me say that time and time again, because I still see it often. I see and I observe that auditors often feel uh, unappreciated, unseen, unheard. Some of them take the actions to say, okay, I'm going to do something about that, and I'm going to transform, and I'm going to prove my own worth. And, although we don't really need to prove it, but you have to go, this is the motions of life. But there is also a big group who are just kind of putting their head in the sand and not doing something about it. And that's not helping them and not doing any favors to their careers or to the profession. And so my words are words of encouragement to tell them it can be done. Just believe in yourself. Do the assessment, take action, seek the support, rise. Confidence inspires confidence. If you're confident and you know your value, and you do your job with engagement and passion, you will turn people around even if they never wanted to talk to you before. So be willing to change the ways you do things, be willing to look at things differently, and be willing to seek the knowledge and the support so that you can do things separately, differently. If you've seen it, Tracy, I've recently posted on LinkedIn an article where I talked about a dance between the auditors and the business. And I say, that this dance can continue forever unless we take the steps to change that dance. So, hey, auditors out there, wherever you are, in Canada, in the US, in the UK, in Australia, and throughout Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, in South America, wherever you are, in Russia, in China, you really need to take this step. That generates respect. We teach people how to treat us. So you got to stand up for yourself, empower yourself, educate yourself, convey, exude that confidence, because confidence generates trust, respect, and credibility. And then when you are trusted and you're credible, you're able to influence and be impactful in the business. And the only one who can do it is you making the decision to do
I
it.
love that. I love that message. And I love what you said about change the dance. In my head, I'm thinking change the music, you know?
Change it.
Change the music. So
Yeah.
when I'm in a certain mindset, a certain headspace, I change the music. I literally change the music. I go to Spotify, I put something on, and I dance around all in my privacy, but just so that I change my headspace so that I can approach something in a new way from a new angle. If we don't find the new, if we aren't open for the new, if our eyes aren't open to say, it's the simplest of things that can be new. I just think that's one of the things that can give us that nudge to be open to something different and to creating that positive change that I think we both want to see in the industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. Change the dance. We obviously also share a passion for dancing. Here you go. We've got so many things in common. Change the dance, change the music, change the way you perspective, change the point from which you're looking at something.
Yeah.
Because and we're all dealing with people, and the way you do things in your personal life, the way you do things in your professional life, there's a lot of things in common that you can learn from and apply.
And look at things from their lens, which is not easy. And to put it, I'll talk about me because I can't talk about someone else's experience, but I don't succeed all the time, but I do try, and I will keep trying, like until there's no breath left in my body, to be honest. To see that, because I can contribute more, serve better if I can see from their lens. Does that make
You
sense?
mean from the business's lens,
The individual person.
from the
Can the
individual
the
person.
business too, but I think, when I'm working with other people and and you're talking about auditors, I'm gonna say changing their perspective, being willing to find things to change. sometimes as part of that willingness to be open to change, it could help to look through the other person's lens or the business lens, as you said.
100%, 100%. You know, I would like to leave the audience with this imagery. You know, imagine that like you've booked a seafront hotel room, right? And you know, if you're sitting on the first floor, for example, you might see the sand and a little bit of the blue. If you go to the 12th floor or the 13th floor, you might see the entire ocean. You know, also, if, for example, you're on the 12th floor or the first floor and you're looking on the in the rear window, you might see the rubbish, not the ocean, but you're still in the same hotel. So, you know, how let this stay with as an image in people's mind that you know we can choose where we look, we can choose how we elevate our perspective, we can choose how to vary the point of view we see things. And because as we change the point of view, whether I'm looking from the first floor or the 30th floor, whether I'm looking from the seafront balcony or I'm looking from the back window that shows me you know, the yard where the trash cans and the rubbish bags are, and the litter bags, I mean, I different countries that call the same thing different things,
Yes.
you know, it's a very different view. Someone looking through that window might assume that there's only rubbish and problems and troubles. Someone might look at the one, you know, balcony and say, "Oh my God, how gorgeous!" But it's the same building, it's the same room. So change your view and look at things differently, and that gives you richness. And as for understanding and seeing things from the point of view of the other, I applaud you for saying what so authentically and vulnerably that sometimes we fail. Yes, because it's hard to walk a mile into someone's shoes or to look at things through their eyes and their meta programs or whatever. But we certainly, you know, we certainly try, and we need to keep an open mind.
Thank you. And I do get things wrong every day. And I try to learn from them every single day and do better the next day.
Process. None
And
of
so
us is perfect. We're all work in progress.
we are. Thank goodness, right? I,
Yes.
I, I think that's a blessing. I think that's a blessing. The podcast, that was my next question is what's happening with the podcast? Because I am really, really excited about it.
Yeah, so it got a little delayed because we got a little bit delayed with the whole branding and the new website and all that. But the podcast is, you know, the intention, very much like you've been doing, Tracy, is being of service and sharing my point of view and bringing other voices from audit and non and risk and governance, but also from others. And it is about enriching the perspective and sharing the experiences because I want audiences to know that what they've been going through, whether it be in their career progression or some problems they faced or whatever, that they're not alone. That there are other people who've gone through that, and we learn when we are in a community. As they used to say, you need a village to bring up a baby. You know, you also need a village to bring up an auditor. So we need to kind of share the wisdom and the perspectives from other people. And also, in nowadays, there's so much focus on AI, and technology. And I love technology. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of technology. I've championed analytics back in the year 2000 when no one was talking about analytics. I've been using it throughout. I love AI. I think it has great potential, but it should not be distracting us from the most important point that up till AI, you know, Mr. Terminator takes over the world, the most important asset in audit, in risk and compliance remains people. And so nurturing the talent, developing our mindset, learning from our experiences and that of others is essential for us to develop. It coming up through my careers, I actively sought you know, those kind of thought leaders and people I admired to learn from them, and I would like to offer this to others as well.
I'm looking forward to it. So make sure you make a big splash on LinkedIn and let us know where all the links are that we can find it.
Sure.
And
It,
I love the idea of you bringing in like risk and governance folks onto, in addition to audit, because I think that is a space that can really add value. You know, even a board member.
That is the intention. The thing is about risk and compliance is that in my career, I've done these roles and there is so many interdependencies. And as we progress and as we look at the world around us, actually, there is a lot more richness and depth when we take an integrated and a combined view and when we look at the interconnection of these risks. And so, for risk to be really successful, there's a lot of interconnection with audit, for controls to be successful, for compliance to be successful. And this, I'm very much anti the silo mentality. And
Yeah.
so, working together, and again, that might look different from organization to organization, the degree of combination and integration or just collaboration, but working together is essential to elevate audit and risk. I firmly believe the fact that I, created enterprise risk management in a number of organizations when I was at Deloitte, and then when I was at Colt, and then I enhanced it in the other places. And I've have advisory pieces of work with many clients where I've implemented it from large, listed businesses to PE-backed businesses to family businesses. When you put these things in place, then your thought process from risk to control to compliance to audit is far richer because they are like different pieces of puzzles that come together, and you have a lot more meaningful conversation with management.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. We'd love for you to stay part of our growing community, so subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're enjoying our content on platforms like iTunes or Spotify, a quick 5-star rating from you would mean the world to us. It's a small action that supports our mission immensely. Don't forget to explore the show notes for various links and join our vibrant community on all our social media platforms. Your interaction and support play a crucial role in amplifying the voices of inspiring women in audit and spreading their inspiring stories even further. Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.